I need to see your manager, she said. You people always say that, the teller smirked. Excuse me? Security, can we escort her out? She's becoming aggressive. All she did was ask to cash her dead father's check. Now 3 officers are surrounding her. One puts a hand on his taser. And the other? He's asking her 6-year-old daughter if she's being taken against her will. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching us from. Thursday, 3:12 p.m. Denise Harper stood quietly at the teller window of Heritage First Bank in Birmingham, Alabama. Her daughter, Lila, stood beside her, clutching a stuffed bear. The check in Denise's hand was freshly printed, a $12,000 payout from her late father's life insurance policy. She had come dressed professionally. Slacks, navy blouse, hair pulled back. Neat, direct, prepared. I'd like to cash this, she said, sliding it under the glass. The teller, a pale young man in his 20s, glanced at it, then at her. Then back at the check. Do you have an account with us? No, but this is your institution's check. I called ahead. You said non-clients could cash policies up to $15,000 with 2 forms of ID. I need to check with my supervisor. He didn't move, just stared. That's fine, Denise said. I'll wait. Lila tugged her hand. Mommy, can we go soon? In just a minute, baby. The teller walked off. Whispers followed. 2 other employees turned to look, then turned back. Denise looked around. She noticed something. A white man in work boots had just cashed a check without a second glance. 3 minutes passed. Then 5. The teller returned, but not alone. A woman in a dark skirt suit appeared beside him. She looked tense. Ma'am, I'm the branch manager. I understand you're trying to cash this? That's right. We're going to need to place a 10-day hold. Policy. No, that's incorrect. I confirmed yesterday with your corporate office. Immediate release for verified ID and death certificate. The manager stiffened. We've had issues with fraud lately. High-risk instruments. You understand. Actually, I don't. That man over there, she pointed, just cashed a similar check and walked out smiling. The manager's tone changed. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to lower your voice. I didn't raise it. Behind her, a security guard appeared. Denise turned slowly. You called security? Just a precaution. I've said nothing. I've done nothing. The guard stepped closer. Ma'am, we need you to step aside. Lila's grip tightened. Denise remained still. I'm not stepping anywhere. I'm cashing my father's check. The manager nodded toward the front door. Please remove her from the lobby. You can't do this, Denise said, voice level. You're becoming agitated. No. I'm becoming very aware of what this really is. Another voice joined. Problem here? 2 officers had entered. Denise turned. Her heart sank. And then the taller officer crouched in front of Lila. Hey, sweetheart, is this woman your mom? Denise's jaw locked. Do not talk to my child. Ma'am, step back. $12,000. 2 IDs. And a bear. That was all she brought. But to them, she brought threat. Because they didn't see a daughter cashing her father's last gift. They saw a black woman demanding something they didn't want her to have. Lila started to cry. The officer, still crouched in front of her, tried to speak softly. Is she hurting you, honey? Denise stepped in. Stop talking to my daughter. The other officer moved between them. Ma'am, step back. That's my child. You have no right. We've received a report of a disturbance. From whom? Silence. I asked who made the report. No answer. Just the sound of a walkie-click. The manager finally spoke again. You raised your voice and refused to comply with branch policy. No, I asked you to follow your own policy. The one I confirmed in writing. Denise pulled out a printed email. Highlighted sections. Official letterhead. She held it up. Read it. From your corporate risk team. Dated Tuesday, 2:14 p.m. Immediate disbursement under verified conditions. That's me. The manager didn't take the paper. Ma'am, we're not comfortable proceeding with this transaction at this time. The word comfortable hit differently. It wasn't about policy. It was about power. Officer number 2 tapped his tablet. Name? Denise Harper. I'm going to need your ID again. She showed it. He scanned it with the tablet. Looked confused. HM. What? You're not in the system. What system? He didn't answer. 5 minutes later, a supervisor arrived. Not from the bank, from police. A lieutenant. White. Calm. Curious. He entered like a man walking into a mild inconvenience. Miss Harper, I'm told there was an issue with a financial transaction. I'm trying to cash a legal check. I have ID. I have legal support from your bank's own documentation. And now I'm being interrogated like a suspect. There was a flag on the transaction. Based on what? He glanced toward the manager. She offered 2 words. High-risk individual. The room shifted. Denise blinked. Excuse me? It's a classification tag, the manager added quickly. Not personal. It says more than you think. The lieutenant raised his hands. We're not making any judgments here. We're just following protocol. So let me get this straight. If a black woman walks into a bank with a legal check and a child, and she refuses to accept a lie, she becomes a protocol? The lieutenant's voice changed. Ma'am, I suggest you stop making this about race. Denise laughed once. No humor. You already did. They asked her to step outside to de-escalate. She refused. They threatened to place her in temporary custody for noncompliance. She turned to Lila, handed her the bear. If they touch me, do not cry. Do not run. Just sit down. They can't hurt you if you're still. Mommy. Just remember, you did nothing wrong. Then she turned to the lieutenant. You want me out of this building? Charge me. Arrest me. Do it in front of the cameras you just noticed above your heads. His jaw clenched. They didn't cuff her, but they didn't let her leave either. Instead, they made calls. Quiet ones. Whispered ones. In the back office, one of them finally pulled up her name in a background search. What they saw next made them pause. Because Denise Harper wasn't just a daughter. She was a compliance officer for a federal agency, specializing in banking misconduct. But no one had asked, because no one expected her to matter. Until now. The shift happened quietly. No apology. No announcement. Just a sudden change in tone. The lieutenant stepped aside, whispered something to the bank manager. She paled. Minutes later, the same teller returned, the one who first flagged her. His smirk was gone. Miss Harper, if you'd like to come with me, we can finish the transaction. Denise stood still. No. Sorry? Not until you explain what changed. The teller hesitated. It appears your documentation is in order. There may have been a system error. She tilted her head. A system error that escalated to police, accused me of fraud, and questioned my child? The bank manager stepped forward again. Miss Harper, we deeply regret how this unfolded. May we start over? Denise looked down at Lila. Her daughter's small hand still gripped the bear like a lifeline. Then she looked up. No, you can't start over. But you can finish what you tried to prevent. They brought her to a private office. Not for comfort. For damage control. A new employee processed the check. Silent. Efficient. Avoiding eye contact. Denise watched every keystroke. Every screen. She said nothing. They had used up their right to questions. 10 minutes later, the money was in her hands, cash, as requested. The manager returned. Would you like a receipt? Denise smiled coldly. No. I want acknowledgement. On paper. That this delay, this treatment, was not standard procedure. The manager blinked. I'll speak with legal about language. You do that. As she exited the office, Lila beside her, the security guard held the door open. He didn't meet her eyes either. But she looked directly at him. Tell me something, she said. If I'd been blonde and silent, would you have called the cops? He swallowed. I don't know. You do. Outside the bank, the sun had shifted. Afternoon glare bounced off windshields. Everything looked normal. But Denise knew nothing was. She called a number from memory. Yes, this is Harper. I need incident review support. Non-consensual detainment. Financial discrimination. Police misuse. Pause. Yes, I have footage. Security cameras. I also have a minor witness, my daughter. Another pause. And yes, I want to pursue it. That evening, she opened her laptop. Filed a preliminary federal report under her credentials. Case ID generated. Hashtag FTX 1120 RBR. Next to the section marked primary violation, she typed. Racially motivated denial of financial access. Escalation without cause. Child intimidation. Misuse of law enforcement. She attached the bank's own policy document. Then she attached the screenshot of the teller's face. In a staff meeting the next morning, the branch manager tried to calm her team. We followed policy. But no one believed it. Especially not the teller. He had already received a call from HR. Internal investigation. Bias concern. Anonymous complaint. Which wasn't anonymous at all. Denise didn't want their apology. She wanted the next black mother to never go through this. And she knew the only way to do that was to make the system flinch. Monday, 9:18 a.m. Denise received the first call. Ms. Harper, this is Jason Trent from the Heritage First Public Relations Office. I wanted to reach out personally and express our apologies for your experience at our Birmingham location last week. She said nothing. He continued. We are launching an internal review and plan to retrain our staff to ensure situations like this don't happen again. She finally spoke. Is that an admission of wrongdoing? No, ma'am. Just an acknowledgement of a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Our staff followed standard procedure based on certain account risk indicators. I didn't have an account. Silence. Then what risk were they evaluating? Another silence. Ms. Harper, we'd also like to offer you complimentary services should you choose to open an account with us in the future. Denise exhaled. I already opened something with you. I'm sorry. A federal investigation. She hung up. An hour later, her inbox pinged. A soft reply from the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. We've reviewed your initial evidence. Clear grounds for formal inquiry. Forwarding to Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and Civil Rights Division. You will be contacted shortly. She sat still, then added one more line to the case file. Phase 2 initiated. Meanwhile, inside the bank, meetings multiplied. The branch manager was asked to take a leave of absence. The teller was suspended pending review. Security footage had been pulled. 3 copies. One marked legal only. But the IT technician had seen enough before it was archived. He watched the moment the officers leaned over a 6-year-old girl, watched the look on her face, then watched as they walked away untouched. He didn't sleep that night. By Wednesday, emails had leaked. Internal threads between branch staff. Do we really flag non-clients by appearance? What is the point of ID verification if they still get treated like suspects? Legal says say nothing. But I can't sleep. We all saw it. We just didn't stop it. The walls were closing in. Denise received a second call. This time from an unfamiliar number. Ms. Harper, this is from the Office of Public Integrity, Civil Enforcement Division. Your case has been escalated. We've assigned it for full procedural review. Pause. You filed clean. You filed smart. You filed like one of us. She replied simply. I am one of you. At night, Lila asked. Are they going to say sorry? Denise tucked her in. No, not the way we think. So why do we fight? Because silence says yes. The next morning, a senior VP from the bank called. We'd like to meet in person, off the record. Denise didn't even ask where. She replied, I'm not interested in coffee. I'm interested in change. If that's not on the menu, don't dial this number again. This wasn't about revenge. This was about documentation. Because for the first time in years, they weren't the ones taking notes. She was. Friday, 11:02 a.m. Denise walked into a government building in downtown Birmingham. Not for work. For testimony. The room wasn't large. Fluorescent lights. 2 flags. 1 audio recorder. 3 people sat across from her, representatives from CFPB and OCC. Ms. Harper, thank you for appearing. This is an informal deposition. You may stop at any time. Denise opened her binder. I won't need to. She placed 5 tabs on the table. Color-coded. Section A, policy violation based on your institution's own training documents. Section B, timeline of the event with synced camera footage timestamps. Section C, list of all bank employees involved, including full names and LinkedIn verified job histories. Section D, federal statutes regarding equal financial access. Section E, incident impact report, psychological harm to minor included. One of the investigators leaned back slowly. Did you compile this yourself? Denise looked him in the eye. I teach it. Across town, the bank's regional office was spiraling. Their legal team had just received a formal subpoena request. 3 departments named. 2 executives listed. No chance to settle quietly. Why didn't anyone run her name? The regional manager asked. No one answered. He slapped the table. Do you know what Harper means in the audit world? She's the one who built the federal compliance framework we use. Back in the deposition room, Denise was calm. You'll find in Section D, 3 a chart showing racial disparities in check clearance rates across your top 40 branches. That's not public data. It is if you know which procurement contracts to audit. When she left the building 2 hours later, she didn't smile. She sent a 1-line email to her case officer. Submission complete. Awaiting escalation. The next morning, Lila watched her mom mark another envelope. What's that? Certified request for body cam footage. Officers never filed their statements. That's a problem. Will they get in trouble? If they lie, yes. If they stay quiet, worse. By Monday, Denise had become a whispered name. Bank compliance officers across 3 states were warned. If she walks into your branch, don't guess. Don't stall. Don't improvise. A leaked training memo read, Ms. Harper is not a standard claimant. She's an institutional risk. Another note scribbled in the margin. She's what happens when the system trains the wrong person too well. Denise sat at her desk at home, updating a spreadsheet. Bank contacts. Officer badge numbers. Timeline of conflicting statements. Financial records withheld. Media contacts and used for now. She wasn't planning revenge. She was engineering accountability. And she wasn't finished. Because every day the system ran on assumptions. She'd answer them. With proof. And every time they moved to dismiss her, she'd hand them a file. That ended careers. Tuesday, 8:41 a.m. The email subject line read, Escalation confirmed. Joint federal inquiry opened. Denise read it once. Then again. The sender was from the DOJ, not a field officer. A senior case liaison. Washington, D.C. Attached were 3 logos, CFPB, OCC, and DOJ Civil Rights Division. 3 seals. 1 message. This was no longer an internal issue. By 10 a.m., her file had been copied to 12 federal servers. By 11:30 a.m., a request was filed to audit 5 branches of Heritage First. By noon, 2 executives had lawyered up. And by 1:15 p.m., the Birmingham precinct received an inquiry about the officers who responded to the bank that day. We're looking into allegations of unlawful detainment of a compliant civilian and unlawful questioning of a minor. It was phrased carefully, but the meaning was crystal. Meanwhile, Denise remained silent. No interviews. No posts. No hashtags. Only action. At 3:26 p.m., she submitted a second file. Statistical Review of Customer Treatment by Race at Heritage First Bank, 2020 to 2023. 93 pages. Charts. Raw data. Legal interpretation. She didn't guess. She proved. She didn't accuse. She documented. Wednesday morning, Heritage First held an emergency internal training. They called it Implicit Bias and Operational Discipline. But the slides weren't about change. They were about fear. Slide 1. What happens when process is ignored? Slide 2. How to respond to high-profile internal exposure. Slide 3. Avoid escalation. Profile-neutral protocol review. Someone muttered under their breath. This isn't training. This is survival. Meanwhile, Officer Delman, the one who approached Lila, received a memo. Mandatory review hearing. He laughed at first, until he read the last line. You may bring legal counsel. Suspension is possible. That night, Denise drafted an op-ed. Not for publication. Just for record. I do not seek punishment. I seek precedent. I do not want apology. I want protocol. You cannot undo what you refuse to define. And what you define, you cannot ignore. She saved it. Closed the file. Slept 6 hours straight. First time in weeks. Thursday, she received a voicemail from a national financial journalism outlet. We'd like to highlight your story. She didn't call back. At noon, she mailed a letter printed, signed, formal. 2. Executive Office, Heritage First. Final demand. Body. You have 5 business days to confirm internal corrective action. Transparency required. Third-party verification mandatory. Failure to respond will result in formal petition to revoke institutional accreditation. It wasn't a threat. It was a blueprint. Because Denise didn't need a microphone. She was the audit. And every system built to silence her had trained her too well. Friday, 9:13 a.m. Denise received a sealed envelope delivered by courier. Hand-signed. No return address, but the letterhead gave it away. Heritage First Legal Division. She opened it slowly. Read the letter 3 times. It was a settlement offer. In recognition of the distress caused, the bank is prepared to offer a goodwill resolution of $50,000. In accepting, you agree to forego further legal or regulatory action. Terms confidential. Non-disclosure agreement included. She stared at the line. Goodwill resolution. As if the system nearly criminalizing her in front of her daughter was just an inconvenient afternoon. She made no call. Instead, she took out a red pen and wrote across the document in block letters. Declined. Investigation continues. Scanned. Sent back. At 12:45 p.m., her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Ms. Harper, this is Deputy Chief Harmon with Birmingham PD. I wanted to extend our regrets regarding the incident at Heritage First. Your officers questioned a minor without parental consent. We're reviewing that. It's on video. Of course. Pause. We'd be open to sitting down with you to understand how this escalated. She didn't raise her voice. It escalated because they didn't believe I was a mother. A professional. A human being. Another pause. Is there a path to resolution here? There was. You passed it 3 weeks ago. She ended the call. Saturday, an internal police memo leaked. Ms. Harper is filed with federal oversight bodies. Her credentials check out. Do not initiate contact without clearance. Document everything. Assume review. In the margin, an officer scribbled. She's not a citizen. She's a mirror. At Heritage First headquarters, the VP of Risk sat in silence. Who approved that offer? He asked. His assistant pointed to the document. Legal did. He nodded slowly. And now she's going to bury us with it. Denise wasn't interested in headlines, but every move they made became one more page in her file. Her calendar looked like this. Monday, phone call with CFPB. Tuesday, draft testimony for Congressional Subcommittee. Wednesday, consult with Civil Rights Data Analyst. Thursday, response to FOIA denial, appeal pending. Friday, meeting with 3 former bank employees, 2 willing to testify. She never raised her voice, never marched, never recorded a video. But every day, someone in a closed room spoke her name with caution, because she had done the one thing they never expected. She stayed. That night, Lila asked, Did we win yet? Denise shook her head. Justice doesn't win. It outlasts. And in offices lined with gold plaques and quiet rot. They realized something terrifying. She didn't want a settlement. She wanted a standard. Monday, 8:02 a.m. The bank's internal ethics hotline received a call. Male voice. Quiet. Nervous. I was working the day Ms. Harper came in. We all knew something was off. The manager flagged her the second she walked in. Said, watch her hands, watch her tone. Nobody asked why. We just followed. Click. End of message. By noon, 2 more messages came in. One from a teller. One from a junior security tech. All anonymous. All verifying the same thing. There was no procedural error. There was profiling. Tuesday, Denise received a message from a former bank employee. Subject: I'm sorry. I should have said something sooner. The email detailed what happened behind the counter that day, who called the cops, who labeled her high risk, who told staff to delay. She read it 3 times, then replied, Thank you. Would you testify under federal protection? 1 minute later. Yes. Meanwhile, in a back room of the precinct, Officer Delman sat across from Internal Affairs. Did you question the minor without legal cause? I was trying to verify her safety. Was there a report of abduction? No. Was the child distressed? Pause. Not until we approached. That answer was added to the file. Line 89. Wednesday, Denise's file reached Congress. An oversight subcommittee requested access to her deposition. They didn't request a press release. They requested her timeline. The one with timestamps, and footage, and names. Thursday morning, the Heritage First VP of Operations resigned. No warning. No statement. Just a clean desk. And a cold exit. That evening, Denise received a short message from an old colleague. They're scared now. You're not a complaint anymore. You're a case study. She didn't reply. The next morning, her phone rang again. Same blocked number. Same PR voice. Ms. Harper, would you consider sitting down with our leadership team? To build forward? She didn't blink. Forward from what? Your silence or your shame? Pause. We'd like to listen. You had that chance. Now you'll read. Click. That afternoon, a federal agent updated her file. New status. Systemic investigation pending. Meaning? It was no longer about her. It was about everyone like her, who never got this far. At school pickup, Lila held her hand and asked, Will the bank be in trouble? Denise answered without looking away from the sidewalk. The building won't, but the people might. Inside corporate offices, the silence grew louder. They didn't fear lawsuits anymore. They feared something worse. Policy reform named after the woman they tried to erase. Friday, 9:45 a.m. A congressional subcommittee released its agenda. Line item 7. Hearing on institutional discrimination in financial services testimony. Denise Harper, DOJ compliance specialist. No headline. No press release. Just 6 words in black and white. But inside Heritage First Legal Department, they hit like thunder. At 10:17 a.m., the branch manager from Birmingham, the one who labeled her high risk, was placed on indefinite leave. By noon, 3 more senior staffers received internal warnings. At 1:03 p.m., a confidential memo circulated. MS. Harper's materials have been authenticated. Recommend full cooperation. DOJ audit team arriving within 10 business days. Meanwhile, Denise sat on her porch with a cup of coffee. She read the memo. She already had a copy. Someone from inside had sent it to her that morning. She highlighted one phrase. Internal cooperation mandatory. She smiled once. Brief. Sharp. That afternoon, a new request came from Civil Rights Division. Would you be willing to assist in the design of corrective protocols? She replied, only if they're binding. Inside the police department, Officer Delman's desk was cleared, not terminated, but reassigned to desk duty under ethics review. His statement from Internal Affairs had made its way to federal monitors. The phrase they underlined? Not until we approached. At 3:42 p.m., Denise received a call from the Office of Inspector General. We've begun preliminary interviews based on your timeline. We may request that you attend closed-door sessions. Send me the schedule. You're not required. I'm available. That evening, Lila finished her homework early. She sat next to her mother and asked, "Why are you still doing all this?" Denise didn't answer right away. Then, because someone always says, "This isn't who we are," and I want the law to answer back. Prove it. By Monday morning, her name was added to a DOJ reform briefing as a key contributor. By Wednesday, her original case number appeared as a reference point for 3 pending complaints from other states. By Friday, her protocol recommendation was sent to 5 national banks. As a training model, she never appeared on the news. But every conference room they entered, every courtroom they stepped into, every policy update they drafted, had her fingerprints on it. Not loud, not famous, but permanent. The bank hadn't collapsed, but their silence had. Because for every email they deleted, she had 3 saved. For every denial they tried, she had 5 confirmations. And for every time they said it's handled, she handed them proof that it never was. And when her name entered the official record, as a primary source in a federal inquiry, she didn't feel proud. She felt ready for the next one. 1 month later, the city looked the same. Same sidewalks, same buildings, same faces. But inside those buildings, something had shifted. At Heritage First headquarters, a new employee orientation began. Slide 1. Compliance Protocol, Harper Standard. Slide 2. De-escalation when no crime exists. Slide 3. How one incident became federal reform. No one said her name out loud, but it was on the screen, in the footer, in the policy ID number. HPR 24-001. At the DOJ building in D.C., a report was filed. Title: Recommendations for Preventing Racial Disparity in Private Banking Security Response. Page 3, subsection B. Informed by first-hand documentation provided by federal compliance specialist Denise Harper, whose experience led to procedural audit and structural realignment. Back in Birmingham, Denise folded laundry while Lila drew at the table. "Mommy? MHM? Is the bad bank still in trouble?" Denise smiled. "They're in training." Later that night, she opened a letter from the Department of the Treasury. A personal note. One sentence stood out. "Thank you for reminding the system what accountability looks like." She folded it once, placed it in the same file as everything else. She never sued, never went viral, never got a plaque. But on Monday, an officer sat in a classroom with 10 others, learning the new rules. And the instructor opened with, "We're going to talk about Birmingham. About the day a woman was treated like a threat because she was calm, black, and right." No one interrupted, because no one could argue. Denise never changed the world. She changed a rule, then a form, then a policy, then a department. She didn't become a hero. She became a reference. And long after they forgot her face, they still had to follow her name. One day, Lila might grow up and read about it. Not in headlines, but in documents. And she'll know. The day they questioned her mother was the day they rewrote the manual. Share your thoughts in the comments below, And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that inspire action and hope.